your dreams.
Now, before I get into the meat of this video, I want to clarify a few things first. If you want to play Wuthering Waves, that is perfectly fine, but the lesson I want to teach people in this video is to do not put these companies in a pedestal, because at the end of the day, they're not your friend, they're not your enemy either, they're just in it to make that dough. So you should never be surprised when a corporation or a company decides to make a decision that will ultimately make them more money. And you as a consumer have the right to either give your money to that company or give your money to another company, or if you're free to play in this case, you can just move on to another game or just continue being free to play. So Kuro gave an apology, and honestly I think it was an okay move. It's a normal reaction. However, this apology doesn't really mean anything, because at the end of the day, the damage has already been done. The fact that Kuro thought that this was an ideal anniversary is not okay. They easily could have avoided this by giving out a free standard selector and maybe make the rerun banners not a 50-50, but instead just 100% guaranteed. I think doing that would have avoided this rock slide, because even though Kuro did apologize, the CN players are still pissed. That's because CN players are starting to realize that they're kind of just full of shit, because whenever Kuro does a fuck up, they basically just compensate. This basically tricks the Kurodogs into thinking that Kuro is listening, but in reality, they're kind of just, they're basically just, being generous because they're fucking up. They're not really being generous because they're generous, but they just fucked up. CN players are believing that they did this anniversary on purpose in order to really see what they can really get away with. And since they can't get away with it, they basically have to compensate. The compensation they gave out was a free 10 pull for limited, a free 10 pull for standard, and a free 10 pull for the weapon banner. The rewards itself is kind of just mediocre. They're not excellent, but they're really not like terrible either, right? And that's basically what feeds the Kuro dog. Kuro's saving grace is whenever they fuck up, they compensate. And that can only really get you so far, because how many times you're gonna fuck up until the player base realizes that they've been fucking up too much. These fuck ups are not really that small. They are relatively big. Let's list a few of Kuro's fuck ups. I might not get everything. Fuck up number 1, the launch of the game was a huge fuck up. In fact, the game was so lagging and stuttering that in order to solve the problem, you had to have Genshin Impact running in the background. This resulted in a very bad first impression of the game. However, people still stuck with it because, they, compensated at the end. Fuck up number 2 was a mistranslation of Gion's Japanese banner. I don't remember too much of the exact specifics of this fuck up, but basically the JP players thought that Gion's weapon did a specific thing, but it turns out it didn't do a specific thing. Kuro had to compensate every Japanese player that sent their email, and they even fucked up even worse by leaking the emails of the Japanese players by accident. I think after this whole ordeal, they decided to give out a free Zhang Liao to, just to sweep it under the rug, Fuck up number 3 was Kuro doing this Samsung event that excluded the CN audience and instead only invited the Korean audience instead, which led to the CN players basically sneaking in and buying out everything and selling it back to the Koreans. I don't know why Kuro thought it was a good idea to have an event exclusively only for Korean players. Maybe just invite everybody instead of just excluding the CN player base. I don't know why Kuro thought that was a good idea, but they did it. Fuck up number 4, censorship without really saying anything, and then basically saying it was a game change. I think Kuro flew too high to touch the sun and really burned themselves with this. I don't know why they decided to give Canarella's pussy lips a little bit more visibility. They are a CN company, so they should have known that this was coming. I don't understand what the thought process here was. They also censored the big blonde elf boss lady for some reason too. They didn't really give any compensation for this, and the weird part about this is that they censored all of the versions of the game. At least with Genshin's censorship, they only the CN players were really fucked. They didn't really fuck over the other servers, but all of the servers for Wubo kind of got fucked by this. Fuck up number 5 is this anniversary, right? This anniversary was just a shit show. The fact that they thought this was a brilliant idea to begin with just shows you that Kuro doesn't really care. This could be the reason because Kuro teamed up with Tencent, and Tencent really isn't really all that customer friendly. Tencent really is about making that dough, and since Wuthering Waves is a pretty high quality game, right? The graphics look really nice, animations look very good. Of course, Tencent would expect, you know, a lot more money back from, you know, doing this. And I think Kuro's biggest mistake was really just teaming up with Tencent to begin with, because if Kuro just did it themselves, I don't think they'd be in this situation to begin with, since Kuro is actually generally known for being generous in their other game, Punishing Grey Raven. PGR doesn't have a 50-50 system in their banners. Their anniversaries actually feel like anniversaries. A lot more freebies, not because they fuck up. In Wuthering Waves, they only really compensate just to cover up their fuck ups, and I think this anniversary was really just a test to see what they can really get away with. And it seems that CN players are starting to understand that. They went to Kuro because they got tired of Hoyoverse, only to really find out that Kuro is basically just another Hoyoverse. At the end of the day, if you want to play the game, play it just fine. The game is still, you know, gorgeous to look at. Combat is really fun, animations are amazing, but just don't put these companies in a pedestal, right? Just do not put them in a pedestal. You can still enjoy the game just fine without worshiping the company. Zani is coming up. If you're hyped for Zani, pull for Zani. If you're hyped for the other chick, pull for her too. I just don't think it's a great idea or a healthy mindset to really be glazing these corporations. That's about all. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section below, and I will see you guys later.
Bye bye now. Come again soon.